Well, thanks everyone for tuning in today, and thank you to AgriGold for sponsoring this coverage. Today on Facebook Live, we're joined by Dwayne Statler, who's a Hancock County pork producer and who serves on the National Pork Producers Council board, and also Jim Heimerl, who is a former president of the National Pork Producers Council and also a hog producer there in Licking County. And gentlemen, we've got a really challenging situation going on around the country with regard to our packers, and we've been hearing a bunch of different things. But Dwayne, you've really had your finger on the pulse of this in your role through the NPPC. What is going on out there with packers in our current situation around the country?
Well, as many know, there's been some COVID-19, workers that have been found at the processing plants, and then the latest was in Sioux Falls, the closure of the plant there, Smithfield plant. That affects 550 some producers directly, with an outlet. We've witnessed, because of the 25% of all the pork goes to the food service industry. And of course, we all know the food service industry is, slowed down and is at a snail's pace. And what that has done is a lot of the packers have already sort of slowed things down about 10% of what they've got coming in, because food is starting to back up on them because there's not as much leaving, because that 25% gap on the food service, especially in the bacon area, because 70% of our bacon goes through the food service. So with that 10% reduction and then a plant going down, it's going to be awful hard. We're on the fine line of being able to take care of the pigs that need slaughtered in the chain and get that done. So it's a major concern on the industry.
And Dwayne, in addition to that, there's also actual health situations out there, as some of these packing plants are the employees are coming down with COVID-19, and that's resulting in some situations too that is not helping the problem, right? No,
that's not helping the problem. I mean, labor has been an issue for us for years. The last 3 or 4 years, labor has been an extreme issue for us. So when you don't have enough labor in the first place, and then you've got someone that is, for health reasons that is sick, and you have to protect your workforce so they can come back, that just helps add to the problem and help add to the difficulties. It seems like the perfect storm, unfortunately, for pork producers. We were at the tip of the spear on the trade, and then we've got the worker shortage, and now we've got the pandemic that is adding on top of that. And with at the maximum shackle space on pork, it has just all come together like that movie in The Perfect Storm, and we're the ones that are unfortunately taking the blunt of it right now.
And it needs to be pointed out for, I think, one interesting thing about all this that we're learning, both within agriculture and outside of agriculture, is the incredible efficiency and strength of our supply chain. But when we have disruptions in that supply chain, it causes backups. Because we have done such a good job with our supply chain, it results in problems now when we have rapid changes like this. And so when you have limited space for the packers, that backs it up on the farm all the way back to even moving hogs to finishing barns, and it backs up the whole supply problem. And ultimately could, I've heard, result in potential problems with having to dispose of baby pigs because of that backup, and they have nowhere to go. Is there any reality to that concern? Will it get that far back through the chain? And have you guys been looking at that at the national level?
Yeah, that's been a topic of discussion for several weeks now at the national level. I mean, that's the reality. Our fear was that if AFS ever hit this country, we could maybe go 2 weeks without having,
African swine fever, just to clarify.
Yeah, African swine fever, but we figured we could go 2 weeks. Well, we never expected this COVID-19 to disrupt the chain like this. But we're starting to see that same type of effect there. And I imagine Jim is just having nightmares on his end, with his operation of scheduling the trucks.
And Jim, with regard to that, how has this already impacted what you're doing on your farm and in your operation with the contract barns around the state. How's it affected you already, and do you anticipate more challenges here moving forward as we see potential reduced capacity for packers out there?
Oh, it's a big nightmare, right, Dwayne? Maybe a lot of lost sleep is more than nightmares at the time. So pacing at night maybe might be a better story. But yeah, I mean, there's whenever you lose loads, you don't know what you're going to do. We're a little bit different kind of a situation in the hog industry. You know, you see farmers dumping milk. That goes down the drain. You talk about broiler industries that can, that's a 6 or 7 week in the egg or not. I'm sorry, in the broiler industry where you throw away the eggs and you don't put the next barn of chicks in. Cattle, I guess you just kind of maybe you have to put the cattle out to pasture for a little longer. You don't have calves, but in the hog industry, we birth pigs every day. We farrow pigs every day. We have to move pigs every day. In the farrowing house, we don't have any backup. We don't have any place to put those extra pigs. They have to move. So what I'm trying to say is every week we have to move baby pigs into a finishing barn. Every week we have to take the larger market animals out of the finishing barn and move them to the packer. So back to the story, we have to move market animals to be harvested every week. So 3 weeks ago, the first indication of our East Coast packer said they had their first indication of call-off people. They had 250 call-off, and we backed our loads up 15 loads. That's a lot. That's a big percentage, 15%. Next week, we lost 10 or 12 loads. So long story short, we had a packer call today. They had 600 people out of probably 1,500 people called off. They got 200 people sick, a lot of people scared to come in. Some of the government saying, well, stay home and stay healthy. Some people's getting paid to stay home. So we're a little nervous. What they talked about in Sioux Falls, the government stepped in and shut the plant down. So we're very nervous. We can't afford to have 30 to 40 loads. Loads 165 head per load. We can't back up 4,000 or 5,000 head and have any place to go because there's not enough finishing places to put pigs in. So we're very nervous of what we're going to do. That's been 3 weeks now. We said we can go 2 to 3 weeks of doing this. We're lucky right now. We were a little bit long on finishing space, but when you start taking 3,000 or 4,000 head backed up, that finishing space goes away very quickly.
Do you guys have a strategy in place on how you're going to handle this and moving forward, or are you just keeping your fingers crossed, hoping things get sorted out?
You know, we went from A to B and we're probably on the C strategy right now. So no, we don't have a very good strategy. We're trying to find finishing spaces. We have slowed down the rations. We put a little extra salt in there. We backed down the protein levels in that, but that's just a Band-Aid. Our Band-Aids, we're running out of Band-Aids. We can't do that forever. It takes 11 months when we start this strategy. So no, we can't change the flow. Like I say, we can't open up the drain and get rid of the milk. We can't open up and we can't stop hatching chicks to go into a broiler facility for 7 weeks. We don't have a strategy because this is 11-month process. When we started raising the pigs, it's going to market right now. So we don't have a good strategy. We can go the worst case scenario and start euthanizing baby pigs, but we are not in the business to be that kind of immoral to do things like that. Mm-hmm.
Now, Dwayne, from your perspective that you get from the national organization, is there any light at the end of this tunnel, or are we still going to see things get worse before they get better? What are you hearing there at the national level?
Well, we're working very hard with Secretary Perdue and USDA and the administration. We hope to hear some things. There's been some plans that have been presented. They're getting the details worked out. But I think you saw yesterday where Smithfield had a big giveaway of product. We're working on several avenues as far as for buying product and getting that off into trade, maybe to some future trading partners, buying product and getting it into the USDA buying product since it's cheap right now, and getting it into the, the protein market to the food service and the food banks. Because the problem of it is just as Jim is backing up, that backup is happening in the freezer space. Our exports are doing good. And it was about 3 weeks ago we started getting containers back from China that had been delayed a little bit because of they're several months ahead of us on this COVID-19, to where they were shut down. They've got things back going, and we've had empty containers, which has given us some relief, but there's just too much. And now Mexico is experiencing COVID-19. Matter of fact, Mexico City is shut down. So in the last 5 days, we've noticed a reduction in hams going to Mexico. And of course, with the devaluation of Mexican peso against the dollar, that made it even worse. So it's a whole bunch of things coming together. And, as the milk people found out on their chain, that a lot of producers are supplying milk because everything is so streamlined to a place that's only providing milk to maybe the schools or the food service. When that isn't there, that producer has no place to go with his milk, because it's hard to get the line changed over to go from pints and glass size to gallon containers. We have packing plants that started making the move 3 weeks ago to get away from, the food service industry packaging. But they knew that was going to be a 3 to 6 weeks process, because they could change their lines, but they still wouldn't have the packaging to go to the smaller amounts that goes to the, to the grocery stores for retail. So that is just takes time, and you can't just shut things down and expect it to get changed in a day, because our system was so streamlined and so efficient that no one ever foresaw a hiccup like this coming.
And we had talked a little earlier about how we've been used to dealing with the former normal. We are in a not normal situation now, and nobody's quite sure what the new normal after this is all going to be. And there's going to be another pretty significant learning curve for not only farmers and pork producers, but also processors and end users as we go through this. Does anybody have any good ideas of the outlook moving forward with the new normal?
Well, hopefully everybody's going to eat more pork and cook at home and be back and being happy again. But it's going to take a while for the economy to come back. And I guess we aren't the only ones. Of course, the restaurant trade's taking a real hard beat, and we know that, of course. But the new normal will be new to every one of us, I guess. So we all got to weather the storm. We all got to stick together. We all got to work together and get out of this pandemic we're in right now. And hopefully we can overcome this. We always have before, and we have to be positive about things. So, but yes, there'll be a lot of different changes. The industry will look quite a bit different, but the short term is, I guess, the biggest thing is hopefully we can move more pork through this to our domestic trade right now. We did have a packer call today. There was some optimism that there was some bacon moving instead of going into rendering and into trim. Very, very little movement, but hopefully there is some light at the end of the tunnel as far as trade. I've talked to 2 congressmen today and 1 aide from the Senate, and they have talks in our agriculture department about maybe some AIS making a big purchase. So that's a positive news. I guess we have to be positive about what trend we're in today and have a positive outlook.
And then what messages, I guess, would you guys have for folks involved with agriculture as we look at this? There's definitely lessons to be learned across the spectrum here, certainly for folks in agriculture, but also folks that maybe more on the consumer end that are seeing potential challenges in the grocery stores and on the retail ends. What advice do you have for the people throughout the supply chain, from farmers to consumers, on these types of issues?
Well, right now, I think the biggest thing of it is food safety today is not any different than what it was yesterday. The great thing about the United States is we have the most abundant supply of the safest food that is in the world. That's why we're the envy of everybody. And that is still there. And it will be going forward. We're going to shake through this. And I guess our biggest strive and our biggest issue that we're working at on the national level is we're getting to be within a crunch time here of what Jim mentioned as far as euthanizing, baby pigs. And that is so wasteful. And that's the last thing that anybody wants to do. We're just trying to work so hard on getting this meat out of the processing plants and to people in whatever manner they can, so it can be used and go to good nutrition and provide a good, safe meat for them.
Jim, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I'm going to say eat more pork. I know that would be probably the one you expected me to say, but we got to all stick together and eat proteins. There's beef, pork, lamb, and everything. We all got to stick together and support the rest of the barnyard. But don't be afraid to eat the pork. We have a very, like you say, Dwayne said, we're very conscious about our food safety too. But eat more pork, eat more bacon, eat more ham. I'm gonna have to put my plug in also. Thanks everybody, and be safe.
Yes, and thank you to both of you. And I want to say that I'm doing my part. We've been cooking a lot of bacon and sausage in the Wreaks house here lately. Yeah, number one, to help you guys out, but number two, because we just really like it. So that's good. And talk about a couple of very essential, very busy guys, both Dwayne Statler and Jim Heimerl. We really appreciate your time and know you have lots to do, and appreciate you taking a few minutes to chat with us today on this very important issue. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks again to AgriGold for sponsoring this coverage, and thanks to Jim and Dwayne for your time today.